everyone, welcome. And today we have a guest all the way from Ontario, Luke Galea, who is the CTO of Seven Shifts. And we are hosting him to talk about technology, developer velocity, and developer productivity. He has come from an era, he has seen it all happening in the technology industry with a lot of experience and plenty of things to learn from today's podcast. Let's dive in right away. So, hi, Luke, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Hi, Ayush. Great to be here. Hi, everyone.
Same here. So yeah, how has been your day today? What is the biggest technology news you're following today?
Oh, geez. Well, my day's been great. It actually my biggest news of the day isn't technology related. It's that my kids are finally back in school.
Okay.
It's the first day of the normal routine, and now I get to actually like really focus on getting things done. In terms of honestly, like everyone else, I've been like really closely watching things like Chat GPT and seeing kind of the amazing stuff that's come out in the last couple of years or months rather. And now that the holiday season's over, I'm excited to buckle down and find ways to, yeah,
Yes, get back to targets. Great.
exactly.
Yeah. So Luke, why not you go ahead and tell us a bit more about your background, especially as a developer, and then how you became the CTO of Seven Shifts.
Yeah, sure. That's great. Well, honestly, I've always loved technology. I started developing when I was just a little kid. First computer, the old school, basic, Tandy color computer kind of stuff. But ultimately I kind of entered the workforce just before the dot-com boom. And as a Java developer. And a lot of my early experience was, writing software, scratching my own itch for other engineers. And so I was one of the founding engineers at Blue Cat Networks. We worked on DNS appliances, all the rest of it. And as much as I loved it, I found that what I really love is, having direct impact on normal people. But not to say the developers aren't normal people, but I mean, have impact outside of technology. And that kind of led me, away from making DNS appliances and more towards, I worked in healthcare, fitness, nutrition. I've worked for a number of hospitals, but ultimately, today I'm CTO of Seven Shifts. Seven Shifts is a restaurant team management solution, and ultimately the background there is that I a little over 10 years ago, decided that I wanted to kind of fully embrace remote work, in a world long before, COVID had thrusted on all of us. I found myself wanting to kind of push the boundaries of what it means to collaborate digitally, remotely, and how can you organize an engineering team today with modern tools that wouldn't have been possible at the beginning of my career, kind of, in the 90s. There was really no possibility of being able to work remotely and manage and monitor the velocity of your teams and all the rest of it. So anyway, long story short is, my story is one of a kind of hands-on developer come remote work aficionado technology leader. There you go.
Great, great. And I know like plenty of experiences in between.
Oh, plenty of experiences in between. I should mention I was also the CTO of Precision Nutrition, which is a pure remote, both the company and the business itself. It's a distributed nutrition and fitness coaching company. So yeah, all that to say, yeah, lots of experiences in between. I've been there, done that, and having a lot of fun doing it.
So, Luke, now tell me more about, in terms of technology, what do you consider to be the most important qualities for a developer to have? And has it changed over time?
That's interesting. Yeah, that's a good question. Has it changed over time? I'm not sure it's changed over time.
Okay.
I think that ultimately, probably the number one, skill, the hard skills. Let me start this question over again. Let me answer, take it from the top. But I honestly think that probably resiliency is the biggest thing. That's probably true of really any difficult, challenging technical role. But I think that the reality is that we constantly fail, right? Like we constantly try things and know they won't work the first time and know they won't work the second time. And sometimes when I'm chatting with folks outside of the technology community, you forget how much we've all just embodied, like we've accepted that failure is normal, and all of those things, like failing fast and iterating towards a solution, and all those things. And so, like, sure, yeah, we weren't writing JavaScript in 1997, but on the other hand, we still constantly failed and had to constantly rebuild things and be prepared to throw away things the moment you're done because they're already obsolete, and all that. So I think that that kind of resiliency and the ability to see every failure as just another step forward.
Mhm. Yeah, yeah. Okay, so let me expand this a little bit. So in your opinion, Luke, what do you believe are the biggest challenges that developers face today?
That's a good point. I think that one argument. What's the biggest challenge that the developers face today? I think one thing that's changed a lot since the beginning of my career now is just the pace is very different.
Mhm.
People used to, like, it was always a concern that needing to keep up with new technology, but on the other hand, the pace today is such that people are constantly talking about, like, they don't even have time to learn one thing before it's already obsolete and it's being replaced.
Right.
Certain communities are more susceptible to that than others, but that definitely wasn't 20 years ago. People weren't finding that they bought a book and it was obsolete by the time it was printed. And today, like, any leading technology, you'll struggle to find a published book on it, let alone anything relevant. It's just like so fast. I'm excited about messing around with ChatGPT, but it's only 6 weeks old. There's
Right.
like, that's the world we live in today, as opposed to, so I think that that's definitely a challenge, but it's also very exciting.
Mhm. Right, right. True, true. And so in today's world, Luke, how do you approach problem solving and decision making as a team, particularly around the technology team? Are there any set principles or the methods that you follow and the methods that you've set up for your team?
So, obviously, if you have a single team or a smaller team, obviously you can get really prescriptive about the kind of architecture and how you think you can best build out your application. But ultimately, 7 shifts, we have 15 squads. We're really, what our goal is, to empower every squad to make the best decisions independently and make sure that they work well together and that the decisions that they make are compatible and support each other. And so, in order to do that, what we do is we define our engineering principles and then encourage every team to follow them and to celebrate each other when they embody those principles. So we have company values and then we have engineering principles. And so at 7 shifts, our engineering principles, we call them our gears. And so the G in gears stands for giving back. So we want to ensure that the communities around our technology are supported. So whether that's supporting the open source software behind it, or the universities that train the next round of interns that we're hiring and what have you. The E is to embrace transparency and openness. And that means everything between, documentation between teams and metrics and, everything about, having open APIs, having an open platform for others to build on top of. Autonomy and alignment, which is basically that idea that every team makes their own decisions. We don't have, some huge like architecture group on high that tells everyone how things should be built. It's about, making sure that we're aligned, but still retaining autonomy for the squads. And then R is for reusable abstractions. And there, this is, we're opinionated that rather than a share nothing kind of microservices, every team to their own kind of environment, that we're all in it together and we're all working on the same kind of core problem, which is team management for restaurants. And so having reusable abstractions, ultimately, whether you're talking like labor compliance or tip pooling or whatever, they all fundamentally have these kind of like same underlying data models. And so in the same way that you look at like Microsoft Common Data Model, anyway, there's lots of magic to be found there. And then our last one is simplicity and speed, which is to say that we always prefer the fastest to deliver, simplest option first. And I think as we get into more about, how do you measure the velocity of your team, I think that's really like simplicity and speed as our final, the S in gears really kind of embodies that like velocity.
Okay, that sounds so cool, actually. Yeah, like as a embodiment of the culture. So yeah. So Luke, tell me more about like, do you have any North Star metric that you have for developers that they follow, or like you follow to assess the results from these different squads? Because I definitely think that it would be easier said than done.
Yeah. So admittedly, like one thing I'll call out is, for years, Seven Shifts, we wrote all of our own tools in terms of like tracking developer productivity and, gathering metrics. We use Metabase and hand scripted a bunch of, queries and all the rest of it. And then about 2 years ago, we actually worked with Code Climate and brought in their velocity tool. And so effectively, we've got Code Climate Velocity's service like connected to GitHub, constantly gathering metrics and presenting them on individual developers and teams and everyone as a whole. And I think that the magic of having just walls of metrics that you can look at is that it's so obvious when you look at over time that if you pick any one metric, some other metric falters, right? Like almost everything has some kind of counterbalance. And what I found consistently is cycle time is the only one that doesn't have negative externalities, if you will. Like you can set cycle time as a North Star metric, and no matter what people do, in my experience, they're not able to game that metric, and it doesn't result in bad outcomes. So basically what I would say is cycle time is that one North Star. And because I think what that's saying is the faster we get our solutions to our customers, the better, even if it takes longer for where we think we're going, right?
Right, right. No, and cycle time has been, one of the metrics that many of other CTOs have also quoted in the past in my conversation. So, yeah, can totally relate. Okay, cool. So, Luke, and that brings me to another question. If you could share, like any time that you recall where a particular squad was not so productive, and then you fixed it out, and then you went deeper and saw some underlying aspect that you were able to figure out. Has any of such incidents occurred, and if yes, then can you share that?
Oh, yeah, I mean, definitely. I think you asked, we set one big North Star metric. And certainly I think, cycle time is the only one that isn't dangerous to set. Having said that, monitoring the health of every team, not as a North Star metric, but, knowing a healthy range for all of, something like what percentage of pull requests actually have comments on them, or the success rate of a pull request. It's not like we don't want to set a target of 100% success on pull requests, because that's going to almost certainly result in people merging things that they shouldn't have merged, or what have you. But having said that, we watch all these metrics, and if we were to see a team hit 100% PR acceptance rate, we would know that that's red. Like that's a sign that we need to jump in. And so across 15 teams, more or less, there's constantly little adjustments that are being required. I can call out a few specific examples. Certainly one thing that we see sometimes happening is we'll see, this massive increase in rework, or a reduction in impact from a given team. And then, you zoom in and you see that they're doing a whole bunch of spikes and proof of concepts and all the rest of it, within that squad, which of course necessarily results, like that's exactly what you would expect. And, an increase in innovation rate, an increase in rework rate, all the rest of it. But fundamentally, that on a graph looks like something has gone terribly wrong on the team. And so I think that my perspective is, one, to be very careful about overreacting. That when you see that a particular team seems like that they're struggling with rework or what have you, it's most likely that it's a really hard problem, or that they're doing spikes or what have you. But it's a prompt to zoom in and figure it out. And in that specific case, we actually moved towards having our staff engineers do most of their proof of concepts outside of the sprints, so that it wouldn't directly impact all those metrics and skew everything off. So
Okay, okay. So, Luke, how much of your team is in-house and contracted? So, what's the ratio that you
we
maintain?
don't have any contractors.
Okay,
We so our engineering department is at 115 people right now, and they're all all full-time employees.
Okay. And how do you see the role of CI/CD, Dockerization, containerization, and all of these aspects in bridging the gaps between departments, between these different
Uh,
teams?
Yeah, it's funny, you asked me earlier, like what are the biggest changes that I've seen? I mean, certainly the like, production environment and kind of like the rise of virtualization and all that has been a huge change over the last like 20-25 years. But honestly, I think that those things are just table stakes. Like CI, CD, I can't imagine working in an environment without them. It would be like working without source control or I feel like if anyone was asking me how to improve the performance and reliability of their either their product or their engineering teams, and they hadn't built out a really solid CI/CD pipeline, and there's really nothing more to talk about
Purpose would
than
fail.
go back and they should make sure you're using the best tools to start, and and then I think that there's a risk to thinking that CI and CD is going to solve your problems for you. And from my perspective, it's like you do that, and then you still have all of these metric monitoring feedback loops required in order to continually improve and to constantly improve the CI pipelines as your as your needs change, right?
True, true. And of course, I mean, definitely there's so much more happening in that side of the world. So my last
Yeah,
question,
exactly.
Luke, how do you envision the role of technology and developers evolving in the next 5 to 10 years?
Mm. Like, how do I see the role of an individual developer changing?
Yeah,
Um, again, a lot of people have been speculating on, how AI is going
zero
to
code
change
and
things.
no code, yeah, kind of thing as well.
Yeah, and I know that a great example of this is the whole question of, can you even these days you can basically pass a job, an entrance test or what have you by popping it into Chat GPT and getting a result. And I know that there's lots of fear about what that's going to mean. Like, as developers, are we still going to have jobs, or are the machines going to do everything for us? I honestly think, and just from my own experimentation myself, that the future is going to be one in which all of these tools become more collaborative, conversational helpers, where we're still actively doing the role of writing code, but instead of searching Stack Overflow or Google, where we've got IRC chats open with fellow developers, and we've got AIs that know React really well, so we can ask them little nuances. And the number, like some of the problems that we used to solve by
Maybe
just
the
bashing our
clean
heads
code
against the
or
wall.
static code analysis could just be more immediate, like code quality feedback could be more immediate.
Exactly. And then beyond that, like, I think that a lot of the boring parts of our roles, like, will be automated. So I'm really optimistic that the impact of things like AI on the developer's role will result in them being able to focus more on velocity, on producing more and getting to product market fit faster, instead of spending all of their time on effectively push-ups. And one thing I wanted to call out, I is that velocity, like the term, is like from physics, is the idea of like it's speed plus direction. And I think that generally when people talk about engineering team velocity, they're actually talking about just speed.
Fair.
And
Valid point.
and my biggest call out is that it's not about speed, right? Like, and I think that that's really what the AI writing will tell us. It's like, you're not going to beat an AI at quickly writing code, but
You can
what
beat
we
it in the
can do is make sure
direction.
that we're moving in the right direction. And that's why I think cycle time is the most important thing, because how quickly are you getting things out, testing if you're going in the right direction. And so I think that's the big thing. We're going to see faster and faster iterations and less kind of push-up work on behalf of the developer, which will mean that we're going to be more and more focused on making sure that we're building the right thing, instead of how do we churn out more lines of code quicker.
Yeah. Yeah, makes so much sense. Yeah. So that's where we would end today's episode, Luke. Thank you so much
Okay,
for
great.
being such a wonderful speaker and sharing all the wisdom. Thank you. And for the audience, stay tuned. Do subscribe for the next upcoming videos.
Thanks, Ayush.